On this episode of Women Who Inspire, we are joined by Dr Sane Ngidi, an accomplished human capital leader with more than 19 years of experience across financial services, consulting, and international development. She currently serves as Executive Head of People at Imagine Worldwide. Before stepping into this current role, she held senior human capital positions at major South African financial institutions and later advised global clients on leadership, culture, and diversity. Sane brings strategic vision and transformational impact to every organization she touches. Dr. Sane Ngidi.
Yes.
I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
For giving me your Saturday.
It's a pleasure.
Sane, I always tell people the thing I love most about my job is the people I get to work with. I get to work with some of the most incredible people, and you being right at the top of that list.
I am too flattered, and I think I can say the same thing. I always tell the story, Kopano, of when you joined and I saw your profile. I was like, what?
That's very kind. Sane, you're a person who has not only been in senior positions, but also has studied women in senior positions. So I'm so excited to unpack both your own journey, but also what you've learned from other women.
Yeah.
But before we even get there, I want to talk about young Sane. You've described yourself as an outspoken child, and I believe that. Always challenging your parents. Tell me about the younger you, and what was she like?
Gosh, I think it's so interesting because I think I am now reflected in my daughter, and I joke, like I would always say, my mom and I have got such a great relationship. I can challenge her, I can say anything. And then now when my daughter does it back to me, I'm like, she's so cheeky. But I think I grew up in an environment where I had a strong Black woman as a role model. My mother was everything to everyone. And that kind of set the bar of like wanting to do really well, wanting to help other people. And I think I learned at a really young age also that like if you do well, you get rewarded. And that kind of has continued through my life.
Yeah. No, your mom sounds absolutely incredible. I mean, also considering the context within which she was doing the thing. So she started off as a social worker.
Correct.
Then guidance counselor.
Yeah.
Then buys a recruitment agency in the 80s and then grows it to a national footprint. Like, that's insane. And what was that like for you guys living through that?
I think it's always interesting, this podcast, and they talk about like how siblings never grow up with the same parents.
Right.
And often when I hear my sister talk about my mother, I'm like, that's so interesting. And my sister tells a story of like how she remembers, because I'm the youngest, over school holidays, we would go to my mom's recruitment agency. We would sit on the floor while my mother worked.
Right.
And so even when she created this amazing thing, family was always at the center for her. And so I remember this duality of her being this working woman, but also her being present in weird ways, like being home during the day, or we could go to the office to see her. But I also think being the one in your family who also looks after other people is a lot of burden.
Right.
And that also played through my mother's career and her life as well.
And in what sense? I mean, did it feel like you guys were always sharing her? Her time was divided, or in what way?
Oh, 100%. Number one was her time. Like a lot of little things in people's childhood that I think I realize now I took for granted. Like I always had a nanny. Like there was always a nanny who looked after me.
Okay.
My mom didn't cook. And even now I don't cook. That's such it's a weird thing for me. I always say in my family, the men in the family cook.
Oh,
so because my mom was working and I had nannies who looked after me. And so those little things kind of like played out in my childhood. And in a way, I feel like I replicate it, but I'm also very conscious around what can I change. And then maybe the other way of sharing her was, there's 4 of us at home. So I've got 3 siblings and my uncle, my brother's sister. I mean, my mother's brother passed away when we were really young. And so my cousins grew up with us. So 4 other kids came into our family home. So and then the Black culture, they're my cousin sisters and my cousin brothers. So I'm used to a home that isn't small by any means, and there's often family, etc. within that environment.
And tell me about your dad. What was he like? I mean, he also did quite well for himself professionally. What was he like, and how did he shape you?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing, and maybe let me talk a little bit about kind of how they got to where they are, and then my dad. So, my mother was the daughter of a school principal in Mzimkulu, so like rural lands. And so there was a strong focus around education being really important. And there's this beautiful picture of my mom and her sisters in graduation gowns. Like that's the vision I have of like these Black women in graduation gowns in an era where that's like not a thing. And then my dad was a son of a preacher. So interesting. Religion, being in church is a strong like base of my foundation, and through the church he got educated. And he was one of the first Black accountants. Like when we were young, he worked at FNB, he went overseas. That was like, so the kind of grounding we had is like, you work really hard, you become excellent, and that creates opportunities. For my dad, however, and I often actually don't talk about this, my dad was an alcoholic, and he kind of battled that throughout his life. And so he reached a point where he stopped working in corporate and worked independently, and he did the finances for my mother's organization.
So he was an employee of your mom?
Yes. He ran an external consultancy and she used them. But 100%, he did my mom's finances. But I think why that's interesting is because I always talk about my mom and I never talk about my dad. And I think it is that, like, he was there, but always just in the background. And I think maybe the more of the narrative and the story I have about my father is maybe more of the negative of how his alcoholism affected my childhood. And growing up with an alcoholic is not fun. So I think with my dad, that's kind of
No, thanks for sharing that, Sane. So you go to an all-girls school for
all girls Catholic school
for 12 years. But what's interesting is your beautiful and feisty daughter, Bonolo, is also in an all-girls school. So clearly you're a believer. So tell me about that experience and also like where you stand on the single-sex school debate. Having both been through it and also taking your own daughter through it.
So I was at Maristella from grade 1 up until we talk grades now, grade 7 or grade 7, right? And then at that point, some kids make decisions around like going to different schools for high school. So imagine all girls private Catholic school. I've been there since the beginning of time. When I joined, there were probably like 2 or 3 Black girls in my grade. I've had the same friends forever. And then my friends decide they're leaving Maristella and they're going to Durban Girls High School. So I left Maristella for 2 years and I went to Durban Girls High School. Still all girls, but now a public school. So I leave a school where there's 2 classes a grade and there's like 18 of us. And I go to a school where there's like 11 classes a grade and there's like 30 people. And it was a real culture shock for me because I'd actually lived a really relatively sheltered life. And for the first time in my life, I was the outsider, whereas I'm always in. Like I remember they called me Nikki because there's the Nikki chocolate where it is brown on the outside and it's white on the inside. I was the only Black girl who swam in my grade. And they were like, why are you swimming in PE? I'm like, I love swimming. And also, don't we all have to do PE? I didn't realize it was optional. I lasted 2 years and then I packed my bags and I went back.
And you asked to go?
Oh, yeah. I asked, it was an experience. It was a very different experience. And then I went back to Maristella.
That is so funny.
I didn't even try to go to another school because I was like, you know what, back to what I know.
Stick with what I know,
But when I went back, Maristella had changed. It had grown as a school. It was a lot more transformed. And so the question around single-sex schools, I debated a lot with my daughter. And I do believe that girls flourish when they're in environments where they don't have to worry about what boys think or they're able to be themselves 100%. 100%. So when I was looking for schools for my daughter, what I was looking for is the ability for her to be in a single-sex environment. The only other school I considered which wasn't an all-girls school was St. Stithians. And the reason for that is because they've got the all-girls pillar and they've got the all-boys pillar, so they can learn independently, but then they can integrate. I don't know. It's very biased because it's my own experience. And I do feel like when she leaves and she goes to university, she'll be very much in a mixed environment, but she will have had the formative years to kind of be herself unapologetically.
So you leave the Maristella safety and you take a leap.
And I go to Wits.
And you go to Wits.
What
and
a
you
time
stay in
to be alive. What a time to be alive. I go to Wits. I stay on campus and I don't go to a single sex. I go to a co-ed.
You are ready.
Res. Was I ready though? Was I? I got to Res in time for O week. But I was shy. I know, probably a misnomer.
Really?
It was a new environment. And so, although I was at Wits for O week, I didn't do O week. I was on campus, but I didn't go. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone. My sister was at Wits, but she was coming later, right? And in a way, I missed out on a little bit, but it helped me find the friends who I did find at Res as well. And then the four of us were friends throughout varsity and I did all the things. Like I did all the things I was supposed to do at university. Partied hard, had a great social life, but studied and passed. That balance is important. But so it was a shocker from no boys to boys everywhere.
And then the choice to do both marketing and psychology?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What was that about?
That was that's my personality, 100%.
Okay.
The marketing is like the external, the exciting piece, like the branding, like all of that good stuff. But I am 100% intrinsically interested in people and like industrial psychology is people in the world of work. So I did a BCom because back then you were supposed to do a BCom. In fact, that's not what I wanted to study. What I really wanted to study is acting. I wanted to become an actress.
Oh, really?
And my parents trapped me. My parents said, I just have to finish the BCom. And then when I finish the BCom, I can do drama. So I was just supposed to do the BCom and then I could do my acting. But by the time I finished my BCom, I was like, start again. That's like not a real thing.
Oh, so you were going to go back and literally...
Go back and start again.
I see.
Yeah, and my dream was to be on the stage. That's what I thought I would do.
Late.
We'll find a different stage, a combination of the stage.
Oh, wow.
So and then... So I majored in marketing and psychology, and then I got to that point where I had finished my bachelor's degree, and I asked around. I was like, do I work or do I study further? And people were like, look, it depends. If you're going to go into marketing, go work. The practical experience is important. If you want to like continue the industrial psych route, then do your honors and your masters and become an industrial psychologist, like go the full route. And so then I decided to go that route.
And did you fall in love with it? I mean, you went on to get a number of additional degrees, Sane. I think you're on 4 or 5. So clearly this grew on you?
I think there's a level of self-awareness that I've had to also reach. Like earlier on in my career, when people used to say to me, you're an academic, I used to get so offended by it because you are an academic meant to me in my ears, you're not practical. Do you know what I mean? You're theoretical. You're not. And I'd be like, but I'm in the world of work, but I enjoy that. And what I've come to accept is that I'm a lifelong learner and that I will tell you now that I'm not studying. But if you hear that I'm doing 3 other degrees, it's 100% me. I'm 100% doing it. I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it.
And that's beautiful. And it seems like it served you well because you went on to do your internship at MultiChoice. You went into financial services and you grew up the ranks and found yourself as the only woman, young person and person of color at executive tables. So tell me about that rapid climb. And also being a lot of onlys, how you didn't allow self-doubt to get in your way.
Well, I'm not sure if I didn't allow it. I think I started off at multi-choice, which I always say I'm so grateful that that's where I did my internship, because it was a dynamic environment. It wasn't the monolith that it is now. I got to get my hands dirty. I really got to do real work. I felt challenged, but I also felt like I have autonomy, right? I think sometimes when you enter a world of work, you get a pillar of work and you don't get to like have spread across. And what they also did in my career is when I was there, they designed roles a little bit around what my expertise was. So I was an IO psychologist. I wanted to be a business partner. I got a role where I did talent and I was business partnering. So that was really nice.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that because they kind of tailored roles to the best of what I wanted.
And was that just for you? Were you special, or was that just the culture?
That was the culture. That's what I loved about as interns. We got the customer care and the call center environment, and we got to do OD initiatives and full assessments end to end, and interviewing and culture. And I learned so much. And even when I look at the people who've come out of that internship program, they've done amazing things with their careers. So there's something there that needs to be like bottled and replicated. Then I began my career in financial services, and I became a little bit of a financial services HR person, and I loved it. I started off doing some OD work, and from there, I entered my first leadership role. And I did not think I was ready for that leadership role. I didn't think I was good enough to apply. The role was vacant. I did not apply. I applied for another specialist role at Group HR. I said to my boss, listen, you and I have a really good relationship. I just want you to know I'm in final round interviews for this role at Group HR. And at the time I was in the wealth management cluster. And she said, maybe not. There's this role, so why don't you apply? And at the time, and I think we do this, I looked at the previous incumbent and I was like, but I'm not Carla. Like I could never.
And what was it about her? Was it a race thing? Was it just personality thing, approach thing?
Experienced, like so much more experienced than me. I have like 4-5 years work experience. She's got like 15 years work experience. She's this consummate HR executive. I've been looking up to her, and now I will become the head of HR for wealth management. That's 4 different business units. It's a large scope. I didn't think that I was the girl for the job. And she said, apply. And I applied and I got the job. And that was in the first executive team. And I think that's a story of many women, not feeling as if you are good enough or you've got the skills or capability, and needing other people to validate it for you to do it. When I got into the job, I was like, oh, I can do this job. But had she not said it, I wouldn't have applied for the job. And that was, again, my first role. I was the only Black woman on the exco. I was the youngest. It transformed over time, but always male. Over time, we got Black male on the exco, then a colored male on the exco, but not transformed. In fact, there was one white female when I joined who looked after the financial planning business, but then she transitioned out. But that for me was, okay, financial services is a serious environment. And also, I think often everybody thinks they can do HR. So also having the credibility.
Okay.
A lot of people, I think they can do HR. It's like, I don't know. They don't take it as seriously as everything else when it comes to the head of business for something, or the CFO or the COO, and then HR. So there's always that like the importance of HR, and that we're not just doing events or whatever, or it's something wider. So I felt as if I need to prove myself on that exco. And then from Nedbank transitioning to RMB, that was also a tough environment. Global markets business, very male environment, very white male environment, and being on that leadership team. But I grew a lot in both of those roles. And I've also seen transformation in both of those environments. So, yeah.
And what were some of the things that you did, like to deal with the self-doubt, or to equip yourself, or to show up strong? Were there actual actionable, practical things you did? Were you working around the clock? Were you working an extra day a week? Were you, like, what does that look like? Was it just organic growth over time? And that your natural talent kind of is like, oh no, I'm going to get this? Or were you actually just very deliberately trying to own your space in that, on those tables?
I feel like in financial services, you are working around the clock, you're working weekends. and we often say this, and I would often say that in my career, that like we work hard and we play hard. And some of my best friends now are people I worked with purely because we were working around the clock. And if we're not working, it's also a work event socially together. So I would say I definitely worked my butt off to prove my credibility. I think there's also something that sits with you. And maybe this also goes a little back to my transition from Mara Stella and to Durban Girls High. I'm always conscious when I've been conscious in my past when I've gone into these environments that there is sometimes a perception that, yes, you are the Black girl, but you're different, right? And I think like my education, the schools I've gone to, those relationships, and I'm very conscious about that as well. It makes me conscious around like the legitimacy of my being at the table as well. Like I actually deserve to be here, but also creating opportunities for other individuals.
No, 100%. And Sane, you then, all your many degrees already sort of clocked. You then decide you're going to do...
I only had 3 degrees.
It's a lot.
At that time.
And you were young. But nonetheless, you do a really interesting PhD on how Black women in executive positions in the workplace are perceived.
Yes.
The same or differently to their white counterparts and also to men.
Yes.
And I'm love to hear what you gleaned from that research, but also how that informed how you showed up.
Yeah. So what became very obvious in my financial services career is that transformation tended to happen in support functions. So there's a lot of women of color leading HR portfolios, maybe some operations functions, but the business head roles, which are the ones that tend to become the CEO roles, tended to be white male. And so I did my PhD around perceptions held towards African female leaders in financial services. And it was a mixed method study. The first part, the qualitative, I interviewed 10 African female leaders. And the criteria to be interviewed is that they had to either report one level down from the CEO or they had to be at a divisional executive level. 10 of them. It was very hard to find 10 of them to interview within that space.
And when was this? Which period was this? Like, give us years.
Oh gosh, how old am I, Kopano? How do I even remember years?
Or periods? Because I'm trying to think like, how recent is this in our country's history?
Around 2012. Around 2012.
That's not too long
2011,
ago.
2012. Yeah. And then the second piece was the quantitative, where I did the interviews. The surveys. The interviews I did across majority Nedbank, but I finished some of them at R&B. So again, that tells you. And I think what stood out for me in the women's stories was there were so few of them and they were not connected to each other. They weren't a network of connected women. They're like unicorns in their own space, but they're not friends with each other. They're not connected to each other. They're not helping each other. And I think traditionally the boys club does that a lot better. I think what was also really interesting is similar to what I had experienced. Many of them told stories of how their career trajectory had happened wasn't because they felt that they were capable already, but because they had a coach who was working with them at the time, who helped them realize that they were capable to do that. Or they had somebody who was sponsoring them who was like, no, you are ready for that role. And so it kind of positions how important coaching, sponsorship is in organizations if we're really going to achieve true transformation within those environments. And I think what I've taken away from that myself is that I 100% believe in coaching. I go for coaching when I'm at certain career points or pivot points. If I've changed the job, if I'm in a place where I feel like I'm in a bit of a funk and I need some career guidance, I go and I get it, because sometimes we are too internally focused or we also are overly critical, and you need that lens or somebody to be a thinking partner for you to be able to do that work. And interestingly, when I joined Gates, I got a coach and we have a coaching program there, and it was so helpful for me in my own transition.
Sure, Sane, there's so much there. let's start with the networking.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I love that, and that makes sense. And I can understand how that comes about, right? Women are busy.
100%.
And even going to a networking event feels selfish, feels self-indulgent, right?
Yeah.
But I know you are very deliberate about networking. You've created networks for yourself. So tell me how, one, you've created the space and the balance, but also how that networking has advanced and accelerated you professionally and personally.
I don't always feel like going, but I go. That's the first thing. And I think what you're saying is really important. Sometimes you're exhausted, and a lot of the networking stuff I do on weekends, I do on the evenings. It's the it's on top of the day job. It's on top of the mothering. It's on top of the volunteering. But it's been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible. And what I have found is that kind of the season that we're in, more and more women are creating platforms for networking. And so when a platform for networking has been created and I get invited or I get the opportunity to go, I go. And when I do go, I try to take somebody else with me, or I find out how I can include somebody else and I promote it. My friend Darshini created Table of 12, and that's been...
I'm still waiting for an invite.
You are always invited. Darshini better not hear this. That platform has been incredible. It has created so many opportunities for me, for speaking, for meeting other women, for developing myself. And so, yeah, it's not always easy. But I also think being at platforms like that has also inspired me to want to create platforms like that, to be able to say, what role can I play in creating more space for women? And that's kind of like where my Gisama comes from. And even with my sister, Theodora also kind of comes from that space. My sister's been to Table of 12 events where it's like it's the ability to multiply impact, multiply opportunities.
Yeah. So you've spoken about coaching, and you've shared the value that you have yourself benefits from coaching, but you haven't only benefited from something. You are also qualified as a professional coach on top of your many qualifications. But I'm curious, for somebody who can't quite, it sounds cool again as women, everything is a trade-off, right? It's your family, it's your kids, it's your work. Is church just not enough for my spiritual care? When and why is it necessary? So if one was to assess in one's own professional life, these would be the moments where I would seek out coaching. So help us understand, when should you be seeking it out and why?
Yes.
And how does it differ from a really good therapist?
Okay. Really important. And also, it's sometimes you get into a cycle where you're in a really good coaching environment. And this is the conversation I often have with people, that your relationship with your coach is not a forever thing. And if it becomes a forever thing, it's no longer coaching in itself, right? Because it's nice to have a thinking partner. And that's what coaching is, right? Coaching is entering a one-to-one environment with an individual who helps you unlock a problem that you have, because the solution sits within you. The coach does not come with technical knowledge or expertise. They come, they meet with you. What are we solving for? And how do we help you solve for it? So they're asking a lot of questions. They're helping you unlock whatever you need internally. That's an important differentiator from mentorship also, because there's often the confusion between mentorship and coaching. Mentorship, the person is coming with deep technical expertise and they are helping share that with you. So they're giving you that technical knowledge or expertise, or you're tapping into them to learn from them and then apply it. And then therapy is a lot deeper. You're dealing with your own psychosocial issues, you're dealing with the childhood issues, you're dealing with things on a psychological level. But if you think about coaching, it's probably suitable at a point where perhaps you are stuck in your career, you've been in the same job for a while, and you're kind of thinking, what's next? Maybe you want to consider studying, but you're not sure what or how. You're in a career transition. So maybe you are starting a new job and a coach can help you think through how you get yourself up and running within that job. Maybe you're in a career transition where you're transitioning out and you're thinking like, what my next is. And so coaching is having somebody to sit with you and help you tackle a problem at hand where the solution is within you.
And your advice for someone listening to this who's like, okay, I'm sold. What's the first step of identifying and finding a good coach?
So there's different methods. You can look for a professional coach, and there's several places that do it. There's also organizations that have tried to democratize coaching, right? Because it can also be an expensive exercise. And one of the things organizations do is they offer coaching to executives. It becomes an executive coaching thing, and you wish that you had coaching earlier on in your career before you became an executive. And so there's different platforms that you can have coaching in lighter modalities or online coaching. And so there's lots of coaching that's available. I think it's about saying, what are you looking for? What's your budget? What does it look like? And then looking for the solutions.
No, that's super helpful. I mean, another thing I've heard you mention that you picked up or learned through your research was this, and I think you've touched on it a little bit in your own life, this, I don't know if I should call it a burden, but the expectation for women who's the first in the boardroom, whatever. One, they're trying to prove themselves, right?
100%.
And then there's also an expectation that they're going to be pulling others up. And I think you've mentioned you try to do that, but it is an additional weight, so to speak, on women when they are already grappling with quite a bit, stepping into the space that was not necessarily designed with them in mind. So curious, based both on your research, but also your own personal experience, having had to balance this dual responsibility, what advice do you have for women stepping into first and those, beneath or around them saying, hey, don't forget about us. And we're expecting that you're going to be creating opportunities for us there where you are.
It's really tough, right? And I think of the research and some of the women that I interviewed. And in some instances, you've worked really hard to get to where you are. You finally make it to the C-suite. You're in the C-suite and you feel like you're fighting for your life on a day-to-day basis, and you don't have the capacity. You don't have the capacity to lift other women. And that's often negatively perceived within itself, right? Because then you are a blocker. You've arrived.
You become the problem.
You've arrived and you don't want other people to arrive. You want to be the only person who is successful. You want to be the only Black female who is a unicorn within the space. So it is a tough balance. I think the other piece is whether inherently you've got the desire to want to coach and mentor. There is an assumption that if you're a woman and you make it, you must want to do this. You must want to lift and empower other people. So I would say two things. I would say the one is, and I know this is the burden, that we must create space for others. That we're there, we must create space for others. But the second piece is, I would say, create it in a way that makes sense for you, right? Sometimes it's not that you have to do the heavy lifting, but how do you use your influence, your voice to create systems, mechanisms, platforms to be able to create space for other people. So I do think it's a tough balance, right? Because then there's Queen Bee syndrome where you're the one who is shining, but it's different ways to tackle it.
And I mean, you have, talking about platforms, you've done that beautifully through the Theodora Legacy Project that you and your sister have created. So tell me a bit about that and the impact that the two of you hope that will achieve.
Yeah, so I think growing up with somebody like my mother who always gave, always, whether it was directly to family members or individuals that were in her employment, my mother always gave. That lands in you somehow. That gene, that sort of, it doesn't miss you in some in you know. And for a long time, my sister and I thought around like, how do we continue her legacy? She was such an impactful woman. What do we do? What do we do to elevate that, to keep that fire burning? And what we've started, we don't know where it's going. This is the first year, is to create Theodora. And we've hosted 2 events this year. The first one was a round table where we invited some people who knew my mother and some people who were friends and people who are interested in the space of giving. It was a really small round table. It's probably about 10 people. And we spoke about what is legacy? What does legacy look like? What does legacy mean? Why why do you want to leave a legacy? To help us kind of think through what we want to do. And then we decided we're going to start small. We'll create the platform. We'll kind of share a little bit about who my mother was. But then we would also try to create events or opportunities where we can catalyze impact. So the last one was a beautiful brunch with young, early to mid-career women and sharing lessons, giving them access to incredible women who gave of their time and effort, who we asked to speak and then said, anybody who is here can call me for mentoring, for whatever, wow. which is really incredible, right? To be able to say, I offer myself to all of you. And who knows what it will look like. In fact, we were at an event 2 weeks back, and there was a strong focus around the stories of men and the stories of trauma that men have experienced and how that manifests and shows up, right? Because we often talk around GBV, the role of men, etc. My sister is a mother to two amazing boys, and we have a strong focus on women. And my sister phoned me and she said, I know what the next thing is that we have to do. And I was like, what is it? What do we have to do? She was like, boys. She's like, we have to do something to help young boys. And so there isn't a formula to it. We just want to go into spaces and have impact.
I love that, Sane. And I think it's crazy that we're still talking about firsts now, right, in 2025. Right. And so the fact that you guys are sort of helping these young people with a little bit of a blueprint, right? Like you don't have to make the same mistakes. But staying on the theme of motherhood a little bit, you've spoken about your mom. Theodora Legacy Project is in honor of Theodora, your mother. You yourself, I mean, there's been a little bit more than just her generosity that's rubbed off. Her fierceness has rubbed off.
Shy, quietly.
I mean, back to your research, you were doing this PhD as a new mother, if I understand correctly. So curious, Sane, I mean, you're in the corporate space, you're interviewing corporate women, you're doing this really important and necessary piece of academic work that contributes to knowledge and is incredibly insightful, but you yourself are juggling motherhood. So tell me a little bit about some of the sacrifices, the self-denials that had to happen along this season of your life to enable you to achieve all these many things you were aspiring to.
So it's certainly, I create unrealistic standards for myself. And I'm the problem. I do this when it's quiet. I'm like, it's too quiet. I need to do something. I need to do something exceptional.
Right.
And at that particular period of my life, I had just joined Nedbank. I'd been there for a little bit. I started a new job as the head of HR for wealth management. I was engaged and getting married. I was having my first child. Then I thought, surely PhD is what is missing from this equation to just be on top of everything. What's funny though is I've always known I would do my PhD. I have always known. There's some interview that I did at MultiChoice when I was there, and it was on the Multi-Talent newsletter, and it said, back then, it said I wanted to do my PhD before I'm 30. We didn't quite make the milestone, but you know what? You win some, you lose some. I did put myself under pressure. I did want to have it all. I'm building the family. I'm having the child. I'm getting my PhD. I'm thriving in corporate. I'm thriving in leadership. When I started my PhD, I had so much passion. And in fact, I did it at the University of Johannesburg because they had a specific women in leadership stream that they were running. And she's now at Stellenbosch, a lecturer. She lecturer within the women in leadership space was running that at UJ. My work my PhD is grounded on the research that Stella Nkomo did on women in leadership. So I was like, I'm going to the University of Johannesburg because I want to do it with these women. And this is exactly what I want. Well, I didn't get her as the supervisor. I didn't get Anita as the supervisor. I got Professor Wilfred Uper as a supervisor, black male. And I was like, why now? Why now is this what I got in my equation? Because this is not what I came for. Let me tell you, towards the end of my degree, I have never been so happy to have that man as my supervisor. He would not let me go.
I love that.
There was a point where I was exhausted. I didn't think I could do this anymore. I was like, you know what? Let me go. It's okay. I'll try another time. He was like, you're not. I'm invested in this journey. You are going to complete this journey. And I got into a cycle where I would go to work during the day. I would get home around 6 p.m., hang a little bit with the family, have dinner, go to sleep around 7:30, 8. I would sleep. I would wake up around 11, 12, work until 2, 3.
This is the same day.
Yes. Get up 11, 12.
Right.
Do my research until 2, 3 in the morning.
Wow,
I was doing that.
And then going back to bed and getting
and
ready
then going
to start
back to
a
work
day.
and then going back and starting the day. Because I started off the first 1 or 2 years with a little bit of steam. In year 1, you're putting together the business case. You've got the proposal. It's got to get signed off by the university. So there's like a little bit of space in that year. Then I started my research. Then work got hectic. Then I was like falling off the wagon. And then I tried to bail and my supervisor said no. And then so I reached a point where I was like, okay, I've got to try. Like I've got to really try now. There were a few years where I was a little bit lax. Then I finished collecting my data and all of that. Went to RMB, finished collecting my data. Then you've got a timeline because the university needs new students. So also the university's like, honey, it's time. And that's when I went into overdrive mode where I was on this loop. I took extended leave to be able to do my PhD. I took a break to be able to do it, but we did it. We did it. I've never been so happy to finish anything in my life.
Well done. I mean, and I also love the story about this male ally, right?
Oh my gosh.
Shout out to these male allies. In these conversations, to acknowledge and celebrate, because this is a recurring theme on this podcast, is that often when you are the first, there are no women to 100%. Hold the door. You need the men to do that.
The women in my study, the people who were coaching them, who helped them get to where they were, they're being coached by white males. And so they are part of their stories in terms of what their success is.
Absolutely.
And let me tell you, Prof. Wilfred has not given up on me. He contacts me every year and he says, want to publish a little something? Want to write a little something? Right. He checks in on me and says, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm still fine. I'm okay for now.
So Sane, this achievement focus, Sane, ticking things off the box. You've also spoken about in that season, you had some tragic personal losses that forced you to stop, right? And often for women who are doing well, it's just that one thing after another. And pausing or a reset can feel like a setback. So would love to hear a little bit about that time in your life. What you took away from it. I mean, I'm preempting here that I'd imagine that as scary as a pause is, sometimes it is an opportunity to take stock and come back stronger. So curious about that pause in the career success. Tell me about that a bit.
Yeah, sometimes a pause is not a choice. Sometimes a pause is not a choice. So, ironically, in that phase where everything was really crazy, towards the latter part of 2015, early 2016, we started to see. It's funny when you haven't had certain illnesses in your family, you don't know what the markers are. Now I know what the markers are, but then we didn't know what the markers are. So things like maybe my mom was being a little bit difficult. Her ops manager at work was one of our cousins contacting my sister and I and saying, my mom is acting a little bit different. Can't quite put the word on it, but something's off. She's forgetting things. She's being a little bit difficult, And I think we just think people are getting older.
Right.
We found out through that period that my mother actually had Alzheimer's and dementia. And it was a long process. It was a long process of figuring out what was wrong with her. And I think I hold a little guilt. I'm sure my siblings hold a little guilt as well, in that maybe feeling like she was there for everybody else and we weren't there for her soon enough when make me emotional, when she did get sick. And so figuring out at that point that she was ill kind of shifted our focus, right? So getting my mom the help that she needed, and my dad entered a caretaking role for my mother. And that was interesting. That was a real big shift in my life with my relationship with my father, because my father historically had battled with the alcoholism, had been not as reliable, and now he stepped into this role of being a caregiver for my mom. And that allowed him to show a completely different side of himself. So we entered a new phase in our lives where we knew my mom was sick, and that was the priority. My dad, through that period, he had some prostate cancer, came back, said everything is fine. His prostate cancer is absolutely fine. So fast forward, it is December 2021. I'm supposed to start at the Gates Foundation. I'm really excited about that. I've spoken to him about going through the selection process and all of that. And then there was a week where my dad got a little bit ill. And then he went into hospital. When my dad went into hospital, they said it's quite serious. So I actually recall my sister and I were preparing to go to Joburg. And because it was so serious, my friends had actually come over to my house and they were helping me pack. And the hospital called, and my dad hadn't made it. He had passed away.
I'm so sorry.
And thank you. And I think in that completely knocked me. I had been preparing for so long for my mother's death, because when somebody has Alzheimer's, you lose them slowly. Like she never fully got to know my daughter. There were parts of my wedding I realized my mother wasn't fully present for, and I had resentment for. But looking back now, I realized she was ill.
She wasn't well.
And so when my dad passed away, it destabilized me, but it was still manageable, I think. Then enter 2022, beginning of that year, around February, lost my aunt, his sister, to health issues. And then fast forward around April, lost my uncle, his brother. He was stabbed in my parents' home by a vagrant. Yeah, that was hectic, because my brother did a video of it for us to try talk to my uncle. He didn't make it. And I think I fell apart then. Like that wasn't an optional fall apart. I remember for my uncle's funeral, my sister came to my house, and my sister got me out of bed. She was like, "You have to get out of bed. You cannot miss the funeral. You have to pack. You have to go to Durban. We have to go to the funeral. Like, do what you need to, but you have to go." And so it was too much. It was just way too much. And yeah, just not being able to push through. And I think what was important about that was I realized that I had my own stigma around failing and around mental health. And the fact that I had to take a step back and be like, I can't. I can't. I'm not coping. I need help. I need a break, was very, very sobering for me. And I think I've always considered myself as the kind of person who bounces back, who makes the best. I make the best out of every situation. Even if I look back to my childhood, my dad's alcoholism, people who grew up with me would not have known, because I make the best out of every situation. So the fact that I couldn't make the best out of this situation kind of felt like, whew. But I did come back. And then later that year, my mom passed away in my home. I had moved her to live with me, which was, at the time when I moved her, I didn't know how this was going to work. It was the best decision I ever made. My daughter used to come home from school and go and play with my mom. She spent time with her. It was the best decision I could have ever made for myself. But when my mom passed away, it was so peaceful. It was so calm. By then, her health had deteriorated so much. She was in so much pain. It was like, it felt like she was out of pain. Do you know what I mean? But the Sane of today recognizes that there can be too much. I can say when I need help, whereas before I would have just tried to push through. And I think I am even more empathetic for when other people when somebody has a loss, I know what that means, and I can be present, etc. And I think I was a work hard, play hard girl. So I would So now when that happens, I'm like, there is absolutely nothing more important than your family, than your parents. There is absolutely nothing that is more important than that.
And I've heard you say that seeking care during that time, or help, or admitting that it was both the hardest thing, but also the most empowering thing. What did that look like for you? I mean, you're also a professional in this field, right? So I can imagine that self-sufficient, I've got it all under control, that needs you to be vulnerable. And so what did that seeking out support look like?
This takes years of therapy. This well-adjusted model, you see, is about 6 therapists and 15 years of therapy. That's how I've turned out so well. And that's what it looked like.
Right.
It looked like going back to therapy.
Yeah.
It looked like going back to therapy and getting full-time therapy. And it looked like going onto mental health medication, antidepressants.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like a huge thing. Right? My therapist and my psychiatrist, I would be like, I can't. I cannot take antidepressants. And they were like, but you have to right now. And that's a battle I've struggled with for a really, really long time, And so that's what it looked like. And even I was with an acquaintance last night who I just met, and I haven't.
Acquaintance.
I mean, that's not a careful choice. That's not for this episode. And I haven't been drinking now for about 18 months. And they said to me, "Why are you not drinking?" And I said, my life fell apart sufficiently that I reconsidered drinking for a moment. Not that it's a forever thing or whatever, but I got to a point where I was like, I need to make healthier decisions for myself. And that's what it means.
Yeah.
It means being able to say, if I need to take antidepressants or if I need to stop drinking or if I need a break or if I need therapy, I will language it. I will tell everybody, I have therapy on Wednesdays, and there shouldn't be stigma or shame
100%.
about it. You need a personal trainer, you need a therapist. So
I love that, Son. And I also love that you didn't just do the traditional Western, you also went the cultural route.
Oh,
Nikki from Maristella sought it all out. Like, whoever can pray can do it for me in this moment.
When your life falls apart to a certain level, there are no barriers.
Right.
Girl.
Right.
Isangoma Sasekaya was on call. I was in Amsterdam with this pandla. That's the girl I became.
Right.
And I
love that though. Because you were determined to get better. Like, that's what I read in that.
Yeah.
That you were fighting for your wellness.
Yeah.
That there was no embarrassment, there was no shame. It was like, I don't want to stay in this place. And whoever can help me, I am open.
And it's also when things happen in that speed or in that way, I was grasping for answers.
Yeah.
I was looking for hope. I was looking for rationale anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And in the Black culture, that means these things are happening because X, Y, or Z was not taken care of, and this is what you need to do ancestrally. And so, yes, Nikki was very much, and I'm that girl now. I am very much that girl now. So
yeah, I love that. I mean, Sana, you've also shared openly during that same time you separated from your partner.
Yes.
And I think for us as women, for better or for worse, our marital status is part of our identity, right? So 100%. It doesn't matter how well you are doing in every other area of your life. Going through a divorce, separating from a life partner continues to feel like a huge loss, a failure. And so I'm curious, through all of that, the personal losses, but also the loss of the life you thought you would have.
Yeah.
How did you rebuild and redefine success for yourself?
And I think that's the hardest part of divorce. The hardest part of divorce is mourning the life you had planned for yourself. You know, like when you grow up, you're like, you get the degree, you get married, you live happily ever after. So when the happily ever after doesn't happen, it's like, what's my identity now? Like, I failed at marriage. Does this now define me? And then also the external judgment. It takes a lot for you to acknowledge that for yourself, but then you think around like, externally, what will people think about me? And then obviously my PhD is in another surname. What happens to me now?
There's some like practical administrative things that need to happen.
Lots of practical administrative things. And then also my child has got a different surname.
Yeah.
Will I keep this surname forever? Will I change back? And I did. But there was a lot of like internal, like identity, like what does this mean for who I am now? And it's funny, whenever I introduce myself, I think I often say it to like let myself off the hook. We need to talk about this in therapy, but I will often say, I'm Sane, I have a daughter. And I never want people, why is that? I never want people to assume that I'm still married. So I'll say I'm divorced. And so I've almost...
You lead with that.
I lead.
You get it out the way.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have to ask or whatever. Because also, I don't want you to ask me about my husband.
Yes.
So I don't.
Yes.
So I lead with that. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I've got a daughter. I'm divorced, etc. But I always say, I'm a lover girl.
Right.
I'll be married again.
Right.
Again.
Right.
So,
Right. And what does, I can imagine outside of the therapy sessions, right? The cultural practices, the traditions, what were some of the self-care routines that you adopted and that you've maintained in this new season? And what are some of the things you have left behind?
I'd say the first, and maybe before of what I've adopted, one of the things I am extremely grateful for is my close-knit circle of friends. I think I'm one of those people who always had lots of friends, and I still have a large circle of friends. But there is a core that held me up when I went through my own mental health issues, when I went through my divorce. There were friends who would wake up at my house and who were present. And I am so grateful for that. And I pour into those friendships because I've seen how critical they are to me as a human being. I've become so much closer to my siblings. My siblings and I spend a lot more time together. I think the loss has brought us closer together. And so I have a much deeper appreciation for family and the time that we have. I would be one of those people who's always on, not just at work, but externally as well, like partying, going out, socializing. I'm a notch down from that. Believe it or not, I'm a notch down for that. And I think what's always funny is people's responses to that. When I'm like, no, I'm not going to go to dinner, or no, I'm going to skip that. People's faces are literally like, what do you mean you're not coming? And I think for me, that has been really, really important. Just to find moments where I like to be always on. It's not always healthy to be always on. So finding downtime, being able to switch off has been really important. One of the hardest things I've had to reconcile is that success looks different to me now than it did when I was younger. And I think from an identity perspective, that's been a thing for me. Like, I value quality. My what success looks a little bit different. It's not like 100 miles an hour. And I think for me, that's been a significant shift around like, what's really important because it's important to me, not because of what it looks like externally, and not because of like what I've ticked off of a list, or not because of how it profiles me, like what brings me real joy, what brings me peace. And that's a hard ongoing piece of work. But being able to do that has been the most important thing.
No, I love that. And I'm stalking you on your platform, Gisama. You recently posted about the 4 journals you keep.
Yes.
Tell me about those journals.
Oh gosh, I'm the most organized, disorganized person you'll find, but I don't want to let go any parts of what I enjoy, or any part of me. So I have the day job that I do Monday to Friday. I have Psyopsa that I do, that I'm passionate about. I have Gisama that I do as well. I also have coaching and mentoring of other people that I do. I still also do that. And so I have different journals for each of those things. I create my aspirations for that. I also write notes about it. I keep track of it. And so, I want to make sure everything has space, but I also do need boundaries. So a little bit is around creating space, but also the ability to be able to remove and have boundaries for different things.
And what inspired you creating Gisama?
It's funny. Maybe about 2 years back, maybe 2-3 years back, I knew I wanted to create something, but I didn't know what it was. And so I did what anybody does in this era, and I went and I created an Instagram page, and it was blank for 2 years. For 2 years, it just sat there blank, and I was like, there's something I want to do. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it feels like, but there's something I want to do. Then over time, I realized that what I want to do at this point in time is to be able to give of my gifts to others, to be able to uplift other women, to be able to share my knowledge, my skills, my expertise, for people to be able to ask me the questions that they can't ask anybody else around them, to be able to coach women and mentor them. And so that's why I created Gisama. And often people will ask me, what is it? And sometimes I feel like that's the most frustrating question, because we're still forming it. Can you not see?
We're still trying to understand what it is.
We're in a birthing and growing phase. But what I know it is, and that comes down to what the name is. And like when the name came, I was like, this is exactly what it is. The Ngi is Ngidi, my surname. So it's all the goodness of my parents, their heritage, my background that's brought me to who I am. The Sa is Sane, so it's around like liberating the things that I love and giving the best of myself. And the Mila is my daughter's second name, which is to grow, but it's also intentionally about, I want to do something for the next generation. I want to create something that lasts beyond me and has an impact beyond that. So that's what Gisama is. If you want to know what it is, it's a platform.
I love it. And Sane, I love how generous you are with your life. You're open. You share the beautiful, you share the fun, you share the hard and difficult. Recently, you posted about a fertility journey that you've been on, and you were overwhelmed by the response you got. So that's why this generosity just moves me, because often I think we think our experience, our challenge is unique to us. And actually, once somebody has the courage to put it out there, others are like, yes, and me. But also, you've also said that if you were to give career advice to a young person, you tell them two things: get a financial planner and freeze your eggs.
So that's it. That's what every young woman should do.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about that. I mean, this theme of fertility has come up in a number of the conversations we've had, and it's clearly something we're not talking about enough. So tell me a little bit about why you consider that career advice.
Yes.
And just your journey.
I think the reason and it's a bit weird, when I started my first job at MultiChoice, I had a then manager, Marwan, and he probably doesn't even realize what an impact that had on me. And when I was at MultiChoice, he told me to get a financial planner, and he actually arranged for me to meet somebody. I think I got introduced to PPS back then, and you're young and you're entering the world of work. So you're like, oh, I'm a professional. I should do this. That has fundamentally changed my life, because as a woman, when you have the ability to manage and plan for your own financial future, that is incredible.
Absolutely.
Incredible. The house that I am in now, I moved in 2022. I paid for it with finances that I had been building over years. And that's what financial planning has got the ability to do. It gives you the ability to be empowered to live and build the life that you want. And why I think of it as career advice is because I didn't get that advice at home. There wasn't an aunt or an uncle who told me about financial planning. I didn't get that from my parents. I got that from my manager at work, you know? And I think when we enter the world of work, we all come from very diverse backgrounds, and not all of us are having these conversations at home. And so, I really valued that, and I will everything about financial planning and find the right one. That's the thing about a financial plan. It's such a personal thing. It's taken me a long time. I've got an amazing financial planner now. She knows me, you know, and that's really important. But financial planning. The second, fertility, by the time you know fertility will be an issue, it's too late. When you're young, you're not trying to fall pregnant, you're trying to build a career, etc. I had my daughter. After I had my daughter, I tried to fall pregnant. I didn't, but then I got divorced. Then thereafter, when I tried to fall pregnant, I couldn't. And I think in hindsight, had I frozen my eggs way back then, it would have given me different options in my life. And I still think I'm incredibly blessed by the fact that I could go through a fertility journey. It is by no means an affordable experience. No. It is emotionally taxing and emotionally draining. And so again, we're also starting families later, careers in terms of where we are. And so freezing your eggs earlier on, it opens up your world of options later on in your life.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I also think the nature of the corporate climb, the professional climb, does mean you are delaying things, right? You're making sacrifices. And an open question for women, because I think what can happen is that these conversations don't happen. Women who want families think they need to self-exclude from the aspirational jobs later on.
100%.
Whereas if there's options and you understand the options, all of them, you can make an informed decision about how you're going to build your family later on.
Yeah, I had my daughter when I was 31. Yeah, I want to say 31, 32. When I had my daughter at that age, I was already an older mother. They said it was a geriatric pregnancy. I was 31, 32. What the heck? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm a little older than that now. And now my life is set up for kids. Now I'm financially able to, I own my destiny. And now I can't have kids. And that's what that affords.
Right. No, 100%. Again, this is going to be my last Gisama. I love it. I'm drawing so much from it.
Gisama everything. Don't be shy.
But something that stood out, you posted, the cracks aren't failures. They're evidence of a life lived with courage. And so tell me, Sane, what do you still want to achieve that scares you?
Sure. Kopano, that's very difficult.
Nothing scares you?
No. It's difficult because I still think I have the list. I have the checklist. Like, I put up a WhatsApp status like a month ago. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the next thing I wanna achieve. And when I tell you, you're gonna laugh. You have every right to laugh because it's ridiculous. It's not gonna happen. But in a way, that's also like what excites me, like how difficult that would be. So I woke up with this dream of becoming a professor. But don't ask me.
Why is that not going to happen though? I mean, you
have to go into academia. I have to do some research.
You're already lecturing. You already got your PhD.
So that's on a bucket list now to have professor in my title. Yeah. Definitely want to write a book or two. So I'm in excellent company to get some advice around that.
Yeah.
And then I think the third one, which is perhaps a lot harder, is I do think about the afterlife, which is after corporate, after the career. What do I do that leaves a real legacy?
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. And it's like the Instagram page. It'll come when it's ready. When ideas come, I know it's not that, and I know it's not that. But I do want to do something really impactful.
I mean, and you are already. I mean, Theodora Legacy Project, your roundtables with women, your social media presence. I mean, I think you're already having such an incredible impact, but love that you still feel like you can and you want to do and want to give more.
Yeah, thank you.
Sane, I mean, you know, something about you, and I don't know if you know this about yourself, but when you enter a room, and I think the folks behind the scenes who have met you today can probably attest to this, you lift the energy. You bring so much light. You bring so much of yourself in every space that you enter. And you've touched on this a little bit, but I want to just unpack it a little bit further, is how do you ensure that you recharge your own battery?
That's incredibly hard. I think I find it in pockets. I find it in little pockets. So, and not all of them are fancy. So the one thing that I do religiously, and I'm not one of those people, I'm not a solo date girl, I'm not a solo trip girl. I'm working towards it, but I do like people in
Why
crowds.
Why is that an aspiration?
Hey, apparently self-actualization comes with solo trips.
Oh man.
So I must learn. I can do solo trips for work, but just to go somewhere, I'm working towards that. One of the things I do, and this is I know, I go to movies by myself. And I go to movies by myself. It's silent time. It's only me.
I love
I'll do coffees by myself.
Yeah.
for me, because I'm so much of an energy and other people person, those little moments where I'm completely by myself, where I'm nothing to no one and there is no expectation, those little pockets of happiness mean the world to me. I had a crazy day on Thursday. I was up to the hilt in things that I was attending, and then I booked myself an 8:00 movie. I left a networking event early and I said, I'm so sorry, I have to go.
Right.
And I went to the movies.
And what did you watch?
Oh, Eternally. Such an emotional movie.
Oh, yeah?
Also.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
those little pockets, what I do when I travel, when there's those crazy breaks between like an evening event and dinner, if people do something, I don't join them. On weekends, if I travel, I don't join the activities. And so I try to find little moments, because when I am with people, I give 120%. And I can't.
And we're grateful
it's in
for
me.
it.
It's in me. I can't stop myself. I can arrive and say I'm going to give 80%, and then 10 minutes in, I'll be like.
Right. Yeah. Sane, this has been so great. So my closing question is, if you think back to the young Sane, maybe the one in matric or maybe arriving at Wits, if she was to be able to look into the future and get a glimpse of you now sitting in this chair, what would surprise her the most?
Sure, we're pretty cool, hey? I think a part of me is always chasing that, like, being relevant, you know, being impactful, being all of that. And just to be able to look and be like, no, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy with what we're doing. I'm happy with the direction we're in. It's true to it's true to us. It's true to who we are. And whatever I do, I want to leave knowing that I'm very comfortable with how I showed up and I was true to myself. And so I'd say, yeah, you're not doing so badly, kid.
I love that. And you're not doing so badly at all. Sane, this has been so great. Thank you so much. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for being so generous with all of yourself. The good, the bad, the ugly, the fun, the hard. You are such a gift. You are such a beautiful human being. And I am so privileged to know you. I want to be invited to Table of 12. You said it here.
You are always invited. And Dashni can attest to that, that you are always invited.
But thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Thank you, Kopano. And thank you for creating spaces like this. It's when spaces like this are created that we get to see role models of what we can achieve and what is possible. And it takes your effort, love, time, passion to create spaces like this. So thank you.
Thank you.